Good evening, cheeseheads, and welcome to our Friday night Spurs show discussing all things Spurs with a particular focus on Sunday lunchtime's game at home against Chelsea. And tonight we have a truly international looking panel with Spurs fans. Jack from the USA. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
Good. Yeah, really good. Thank you. We've got Cam all the way from sunny Australia. How's things over in Oz, Cam?
Yeah, mate, quite sunny, quite warm today. Should be about 32, so I'll be heading down the coast into some surf. So, yeah, it'll be good.
What's those great whites, though, Cam? They're everywhere.
100%.
And our most welcome special guest and Chelsea fan, making a return to the cheese room all the way from London, we have Charlie. Charlie, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back here. Obviously, not in the best circumstances for myself, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show, and we look forward to discussing everything that's going on at Chelsea at the moment, as well as Tottenham, and looking ahead to what feels like a bit of a big game this weekend for the Spurs and for Chelsea for different reasons, which we'll get into. So the first things first, I think we should start by remembering this week we have lost. So I'm just trying to share my screen. We've lost the great John Motson. Sadly passed away yesterday at the age of 77. We'll always remember John for his magical commentaries, especially in the 80s and the 90s. But he first came to prominence in 1972 when he famously commented on Hereford's giant killing over Newcastle in the FA Cup and that famous Ronnie Radford goal. He went on to commemorate on FA Cup finals, including the last 3 times Spurs have won, multiple World Cups and European Championships. A true legend of the game and someone that's going to be missed. Any magical memories from anyone on the panel tonight from John, or any commentary he's done for Spurs against Spurs or Chelsea for that matter?
I don't know. I'm trying to think because most of the stuff's been match of the day, and I don't watch match of the day that much anymore. And I think I've got to be honest, I'm a bit young to remember like his other commentary stuff. If I'm being totally honest, obviously I know he's a legend and stuff and whatnot. He's been great in football and the voice of football and things like that. But yeah, in terms of any sort of standout memories, I don't think I've actually watched any games that he's commentated on other than match of the day highlights, which obviously is still good. But yeah, I don't think it does him justice.
Yeah, for me, when I was doing my 5 years in the UK, I would watch match of the day. I did notice it was on the odd game. To me, and with due respect, I say this, I didn't have the history of him, obviously, clearly, but I do remember and recognise his voice for the odd games that he did commentate. But like every long-standing commentator, he's obviously left an amazing legacy. So, Vale to John Motson.
Yeah, true great, and will be fondly remembered. So, as always, those listening tonight, do put your comments into the comments box. We do read them all, and we will make reference to them throughout the show, particularly the good ones. So I think it's best to start with our guest, Charlie. So first question for you, really. From a Chelsea perspective, how do you look at this current Tottenham side at the moment? Obviously, with Conte at the helm, what is it when you look over at Tottenham? Are you scared of Tottenham at the moment? Are you fearful? Is it a case of we're a bit of a laughing stock, or where are you at?
No, I don't feel that. Obviously, the rivalry and stuff, and Chelsea kind of look at Tottenham as a soft touch, kind of an easy side to beat, and that's been the case over the years, particularly in our record, particularly at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well, since you guys moved there. I mean, other than the time you beat us on penalties in the League Cup when Lampard was in charge, we haven't conceded a goal at that stadium. So, and generally, we do pretty well against Spurs, but it's kind of different this time around. I think Tottenham are in a much better position currently than Chelsea are, not just in terms of the league, but I think in terms of a club as well. Trying to go in the right direction. But I look at Tottenham and I think it's a good team, good players, but I don't look at them and think, they're going to win something, or they're going to be a threat. They're going to really challenge like at the top end of the table. I just look at them as a team that plays nice football from like now and then. will win a few matches, might qualify for the Champions League, but ultimately isn't good enough to win anything. And I know that seems a bit rich for myself saying this, in considering our position, but I just look at the team and I think, yeah, good manager, good players, but ultimately, where's Tottenham going at the moment in terms of, because the aim is to win things, and you've had two of the best managers. Obviously, Conte. I don't want to say like Conte's gone, but you've had Jose. Poch couldn't win anything. He did well. You know, he got to a Champions League final. He built a good team there. Couldn't win anything under Poch. Jose, well, he didn't even get the chance to show he could win something. And then Conte, you're looking at it and you think, well, what are Tottenham going to win this season? Maybe the FA Cup, and that is a strong possibility. But I just look at where I see. Obviously, you follow Tottenham a lot more than I do. But from an outsider's perspective, I just think good side can beat anyone on their day. But are they really something to worry about? And I look at Tottenham and I don't think they are right now, but I don't really know where Tottenham go from here in terms of if Conte goes in the summer, then you've had two managers that are winners, but haven't won anything. So it's an interesting one. Like, I think there's potential there in Tottenham in terms of the stadiums are unbelievable. Obviously, the training ground, there is investment there. Obviously, there's unrest with the owners, Enic and Levy and whatnot. But like, all the fundamentals are there for a very good team. But I guess the mentality is perhaps an issue. And I think the quality of players is, whilst good enough to maybe pick up a domestic cup, isn't really good enough if Spurs really want to be taken seriously. That's just my view on it, though.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's come in with the paper cuts to start us off there. Fair assessment of Tottenham?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I think it's very fair. And I think just to say that I hadn't really realized this, Chelsea hasn't conceded at the stadium. At the same time, City has never scored there. So that just tells you about Tottenham. To your point is we can play with anyone on the day, but no consistency and a mentality issue. I think, I'll be honest with you, I think Charlie's kind of captured it fairly well. I mean, you know, and I said this last time, if Conte leaves without a trophy, then everywhere he's ever been outside of maybe the second or third division of Italy, he's won something. Jose's won something at every club he's ever been to, except for Tottenham. So what is it? The common denominator? It's Tottenham. And it has to do with some issues at the club, I'd say, because, you know, yeah, there's some depth issues, always have been. After about 13 players, you start getting real thin. But right now, you look at our bench, it's not bad. You know, even with the injuries that we've got. And so, you know, I think we're positioned to win an FA Cup. That's very possible. I wouldn't say likely, but it's certainly possible. But outside of that, we're not in a position to challenge for anything.
Yeah. Cam, is it fair assessment for you as well? Would you agree, or you got a different view?
Yeah, I think I think he's hit the nail on the head there. I think there's obviously a discrepancy with regards to money spent there, clearly, but with regards to comparing us to Chelsea. But I definitely agree with a lot of what he says. This season, yeah, it feels like a bit of a nothing season. Yeah, we're still in a couple of cups, the FA Cup probably being, I think it's the FA Cup, being most likely. But yeah, I'd have to agree with what everybody says thus far. So couldn't say any more to that.
Charlie, you made a point. You said something about you see Spurs and we play good football at times. I think it's fair to say among some section of our fan base and a lot of the sections of the Cheese Room group, there's a lot of criticism of our style of play and Conte's style of play at Tottenham. The word often used in our group chat is turgid. But it comes to display to talk about the football. How do you see it when you look at Tottenham? Do you see it as a negative, boring football, or do you see something different to what we see? And is that maybe reflective of what you've seen at Chelsea? Because you've had a lot of success with what I would call pragmatic managers, haven't you? With Conte and with Mourinho before him.
I mean, look, when Conte, what he's doing now at Tottenham in terms system-wise is exactly what he did at Chelsea. And for that one season, I mean, to be fair, people like it's easy to forget, but we started that season under Conte. We were terrible. Like, we got hammered at the Emirates 3-0 by Arsenal, and we switched to that back three in the last 15, 20 minutes of that game. And then we literally stuck with that for the rest of the season. And I think we won a then record amount of Premier League games in a row, like 13 or so wins on the spin, and we won the title. And that I think we kind of just fell into that. And, you know, back then the back three we never really saw it in England, and it was kind of a bit of an unknown. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. Now the back three is quite commonly used. We use it under Thomas Tuchel. Antonio Conte always uses it. And what I would say is, like, fond memories of Conte for winning what he did at the club. That season when he got sacked, the football was awful. It was utterly dire. And I understand like what you feel as Tottenham fans, but you almost look at Conte, and like when Levy appoints him, you know what you're getting with Conte. It's someone that wants the pieces of the puzzle there, and all he's got to do is put them together. And Spurs, the bits of the puzzle aren't there to all put together. So, you know, and you're going to get Conte. He doesn't get exactly what he wants. He just moans and moans and moans about it until he does, or he just leaves. And then when he leaves, he doesn't take any responsibility for his performance. He blames it on the fact that he didn't get the investment. And I don't know. I like Conte, and he's a good manager. I'll be forever grateful for what he's done. Obviously, he left in bad circumstances. He sued the club. He told Diego Costa not to come back to pre-season training. You know, obviously, time sort of heals those things. I don't hate the man, but you know, there's a lot of questionable things that he's done. But in terms of the style of football, I fully sympathise with you guys, because whilst we had a lot of success under Conte, there's no denying that the back three football that he plays, and I've watched Spurs in some games this season, like Man City, for example, who play very well. Other games, I'm like, how is it possible to play this badly? I know we've played badly before, but we've played badly a lot this season. But I watched some Tottenham games. I think there's no way you could be playing this badly with a manager like Conte and the quality of players on display. So I think one thing is very stubborn. Like he's got his back he's got his back three system, and that's that. There's no leeway or scope to deviate to something else. It's the back three. Even if you're getting hammered in a game, no, still won't change it. It's like that's the thing. I just think he's stubborn. I don't want to say he's stuck in his ways, but I think I don't really know what it is. But yeah, no, I do sympathise. I think he's when that back three system works, it's great. When it's not working, it's some of the worst football you'll see. And for Conte, I just think there's no willingness to change, or he doesn't want to change because he then looks like it's an admittance that he's wrong, sort of thing. And these guys have got big egos. Maybe he doesn't want to accept that he's wrong. But yeah, look, I think good football at times, the back three does work well occasionally, but in certain games. But I think in terms of over a course of a season, more often than not, it probably isn't really going to work out for me. So yeah, I just think he's stubborn. And yeah, the system, like as I say, you're going to get some good performances. You're going to get some absolutely shocking ones. And yeah, I do sympathise with you guys, because I've seen it before with Conte myself at Chelsea. Yeah.
That's great insight, Charlie. And Cam and Jack were both nodding their heads furiously, so I'm sure they agree. But Cam, for you, obviously, you know, first time I've been on the show with you, how do you see the football at the moment this season in terms of what's good about what we do and what's the bad bits about what we're doing?
Look, Gibbo's word turgid comes into frame quite regularly. So it hasn't been tidy. You got to remember, I watch more of the mini matches down here because they're on in the middle of the night here. So what I have watched, it's a bit strange because at the start of the season, we went to Chelsea and got a draw when we shouldn't have got a draw. And I thought that was a real tactical chess kind of game. Tuchel came out, and obviously Reece James was killing us. And then I noticed the pattern this season, I think it's been more mental. What I'm trying to get, I think it's been more mental for the team and partly Conte's stubbornness as well. The reason I'm getting at is I think it's been messy, turgid football because I think that he hasn't wanted to listen to anyone. But when I've noticed the last probably couple of weeks, when Stellini's in there, it feels mentally that the team have the shackles off them a bit. And you notice, like, it's still been a little bit of messy football, but it hasn't been attractive, but it has won us games when Stellini's in there. So if we're wanting typical Tottenham, flashy, kind of, you know, Glenn Hoddle kind of, you know, that clean, nice football, the flashy football, you're not going to get it under Conte. Charlie would know this, obviously. he's a warrior, Conte, and all these teams want to battle. So it hasn't been messy, but it's got us games and it's won us games as well. And we're, I think, 4th or 5th at the present time. So as much as the aesthetics hasn't been great, it has grinded out results for us. So it's a bit of a mixed one for me because we've managed to get results, but in a messy, battling kind of format, which isn't bad. But I think the team's been impaired by not having the right players, the quality enough players in certain positions, i.e. right wing back, centre back. So, yeah, it's probably a long enough answer for you.
No, that's good. Jack, do you believe that there's a difference when Conte hasn't been here as Delaney's been in instead of Conte? Do you see a difference in the way that we set up, or do you think it's just a coincidence of the teams that we faced and the games that we played?
I don't. I mean, the pattern of play and the system that they're playing is no different. You know, the lineups are the same. You know, there's no change there. And it may just be, I think we read too much into the Conte not being there versus being there. I mean, obviously Stellini's 6-0 between Inter and Tottenham, but you know, again, it's not like it's a team that loses more games than it wins either. So I think it's just a matter of execution, quite frankly, confidence. Maybe there's something when he's not on the pitch, but the system of play is the same. And I don't really put too much into it that, you know, he's not been there. The only caveat to that is that, you know, he's had a tough personal life the last 6 months in terms of you know, we know the deaths of his friends. So maybe his own demeanor is off and it brings down players a little bit, something. So when he's not there, it's a lighter mood and they're more able to execute. But the 3-4-3 system is based on execution. There's just not a lot of room for errors. Especially when you're playing out of the back. You know, it's one thing if Fabregas and Conte are your midfield two, you can get away with a lot. Maybe, you know, when as opposed to what we've been faced, you know, and even back then you had wing backs that were far better, obviously, than what we've had most of the season. So, but I don't think the team has played any different. They've just had some good results, but I don't think they've played that much differently when Stellini's been there. I mean, maybe the substitution pattern is slightly different, but I think that's pretty minor.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, to summarise some of what you was just saying, Jack and Charlie and Cam, this is an interesting statistics of where Tottenham are in terms of scoring and Chelsea as well. So you can see, you know, in terms of scoring, Tottenham, we're the 3rd highest scorers in the Premier League with 44 goals. I mean, we're in the top 10 for Europe in top teams in terms of scored goals. I mean, that's, you know, we've talked all season about it's turgid football, we're not been playing particularly well, etc. But if it's goals we're after, we're getting goals, right? So the issue clearly, as we can see, is you look at goals conceded, and we conceded 35. So it's a Jekyll and Hyde type thing, isn't it? We're scoring. It's obvious we're scoring goals and enough goals for winning games, but we the three at the back and the you know, playing out from the back, Jack, in part, and making the mistakes is where our problem lies. And of course, we're looking ahead to tomorrow, Sunday, Charlie. Where are Chelsea in goals scored? Oh, there they are, towards the bottom.
Yeah,
23 goals.
Somewhere down the bottom. Yeah, that's where you find us. Yeah, scoring goals is a massive problem. It's been a problem all season. It's been a problem it's been a problem for years. And you know, it's all very well not conceding many goals, and that's great. And defensively, we're pretty good, as the stats suggest. You know, we've conceded the joint second least amount of goals this season behind Newcastle, and yet we're 10th in the table. And the reason for that is because we can't put the ball in the net. Simple as that. And I don't really know what it comes down to, because it's not a Graham Potter issue, because it was an issue under Thomas Tuchel. It was an issue under Lampard. It was an issue under Sarri. And yeah, it's been an issue for a number of managers. And I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's because of the way we've set up. It's not conducive to getting the best out of the attacking players. I think the back three system relied heavily on the wing backs under Thomas Tuchel. And then when those guys didn't play, there was no outlet, there was no width, and we didn't create anything, and therefore we didn't score anything. But I don't really know, because I look at some of the games this season. I've been to a lot of games this season, home and away, and like some of them I've watched, and I'm just like, how have we not scored in that game? Like, ultimately, yeah, we've lost, and at times, we've not played well enough. But there's been moments in games that we've not won where we should be putting the ball in the net, and we're just simply not doing it. And if it was kind of just as simple as putting your finger on it and it was one thing, then I'm sure we'd be working on it. But what I don't think helps, perhaps, is that obviously the team right now is low on confidence. We're in a poor run of form. Everyone knows that. Confidence is low. Fans are getting on. The team's back, on the manager's back. And that transmits to the players. And when your confidence is low, you're going to probably more likely to snatch at your opportunities and whatnot, and not do things that you would do when you're when your confidence is high, or you're unlikely to try things when your confidence is low compared to where your confidence is high. I just put it down to, I suppose, just a confidence issue, really. And perhaps we have created more chances recently, but we still can't put them away. And that's why, I don't know, I look at it and I feel like we're not, I know the results have been awful and they're unacceptable, but I look at it and I think we're not that far away in terms of defensively we're good. All right, the midfield still needs a bit of work, but we'll add some more players there in the summer. And the attack, we've got good quality there. It's just we're just waiting for someone to put the ball in the net. We're waiting for that confidence to return. And we're not far away because we're not getting hammered in these games. Obviously, at Chelsea, losing games is not acceptable, whatever the situation. But I often feel like the positives are slightly overlooked a little bit because the results have been so bad. Because I kind of judge it from the Palace game. We obviously beat Palace 1-0, and then we drew 0-0 to Liverpool. We drew 0-0 to Fulham, and we drew at West Ham, and then obviously we lost to Southampton, which was diabolical. But like in those games, we've played pretty well at points, and in those points when we've been in the ascendancy, we've had more than enough chances to put the game to bed. And it's the same old situation with Chelsea, is that when we're in the ascendancy, we don't kill games off. And it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're only a goal ahead in a game, the other side's always in it. So, yeah, I don't know what the goal score. I don't know what the goal scoring issue is. I can't put my finger on it. And I don't think Graham Potter and the coaching staff or the people at Chelsea really know what the answer is either. Because if it was one simple solution, then they would have tried it. But this is like 2 or 3 years consistent issues. I know it doesn't help having an out and out number 9, but we've also been down that route as well, and that hasn't worked. So
there's a partly chemistry because you've had such an infusion of new players as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes a massive thing. But of course, when you spend that much money, like the expectation then goes up even further. And you're right. Generally speaking, that window we had in January, fantastic, loved it. It was a real lift around the place, made you kind of forget about the position that we were in the league and what's been happening this season. But the reality of the situation is when you bring in that many players all at once, particularly mid-season, to try and bed 4, 5, 6 names into the starting lineup mid-season is a pretty tough thing to do. And, other fans might sit and look at it and think, oh, what a luxury position to be in. But it also comes with its issues as well. So I'm not making excuses or anything, because there are no excuses for us doing this badly. But you do have to take into account some things, such as it does take time to bed new players into a team, particularly mid-season, particularly when these are young players, obviously very good young players, but not an awful lot of experience playing at a top level either. So I think these factors aren't helping, but we absolutely have got the quality on the pitch and in the squad to be doing far better than we are. And Graham Potter's got to find a solution. Otherwise, whatever Todd Boehly says, the results speak for themselves, and he will find himself out of a job before the end of the season if we don't start picking a few wins up. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, since the turn of the year for Chelsea, 2 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses. I mean, it's interesting. But Jack, for me, listening to Charlie talk there and looking at the stats, are you worried about Sunday? Because I am.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you'd be no Tottenham fan, actually, if they're really being honest, in their heart believes they're winning Sunday. I mean, Chelsea, I've been this way for a while. If we could play Man City 38 times, I'm all in. But I don't want to play Chelsea ever. So it is just, I mean, and I could easily see a game decided by an own goal. We're in it 0-0 and we give up a goal to them because they can't score, but neither can we. I mean, the thing with Chelsea for me is, over the last few years, I haven't watched them as much since Potter came in, I'll be honest with you. But if you were mentioning this, Charlie, over the last few years, I mean, the different front lines that Chelsea have run over the last 3 years, the number of players that have cycled through the forward attacking positions, I probably couldn't name them all if I tried. The different formations that from 4-3-3 to the back three to a 4-2-3-1 to, I mean, just this group of players has dealt with constant changes to the lineup, constant rotation through the front line, constant bringing in it, like you're saying, great to buy 5, 6, 7, like whatever players you bought since last summer, 9, but that takes a lot. The best manager is going to have a hard time. The best players are going to have hard time finding it. And I think that there's not a lack of talent, but I think your inability to find a number 9. I mean, I just would tell you that the stability that we've had at the front three with Kane and Son and somebody else that's been there for so many years is so embedded in the team. We can find goals because there's been stability there for years. And we're fortunate. I mean, there's no question about that. We got other issues. But scoring goals recently has not been the problem, and it's due to the stability of that part of the pitch for us. It's the back, as we all know, is much of the problem. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my view on it.
Cam, Charlie talked about their difficulties in scoring, also made good points about how when there's been moments in games when Charlie's been seeing it and thinking, well, we should be scoring goals here. Well, how have we not scored? I mean, Tottenham is not going to have that right on Sunday against Tottenham. Is it? We're going to gift them goals, aren't we?
Yeah, our defense isn't exactly watertight. Is Romero still out? He's out.
No, he's playing. He'll play.
He's back. He's back.
He's back. Because otherwise Chelsea would have been scoring this Sunday quite easily. Yeah, look, the other end of the pitch is a bit of an issue. Look, I don't know how we're going to start on Sunday, but yeah, the problem with Tottenham-Chelsea games, Tottenham-Arsenal, London derbies, they're high intensity. So your form kind of goes out the window to an extent. Potter's a cagey customer, managerially speaking, against Spurs. I remember he's come across particularly with Brighton, he's come across and tactically set up really well against us. He's basically taken Kulusevski out of the game, amongst others, when Cucurella was at Brighton. So I'm actually not too confident this Sunday, and I think partly because our defending isn't great at the present time. So, yeah, I'm a bit hesitant this Sunday nonetheless. It's a bit strange because Chelsea's got a bunch of issues at one side of the scale and we've got a few issues at the other end of the scale.
Yeah.
Look, we're higher on the table, and Jack says obviously by virtue of probably our having a more settled lineup in certain other positions, I would say defensively was probably just a bit unsettled down there as well. And then you got Forster in goal, who, look, last game was good, but he hasn't been convincing me completely since he's come on since Lloris's injury. So, yeah, a bit hesitant.
What do you think, Charlie, in terms of Potter? I mean, Potter's someone that many Spurs fans have touted for us as a manager for us before we went to Chelsea. But is it, if we lose to Tottenham on Sunday, is he gone in your mind? Should he go? Or has he got more favour?
He won't be gone because the board, Bowley and co, fully back him, and they see him as the guy for the long term. That's the idea. But ultimately, there's got to come a point where the kind of the scale tips in the other way, and you think, right, well, yeah, we do want someone long term, but that can't be at the expense of us just losing every week because we want someone long term. You know, you've got to show something that that you deserve the backing. Yes, we're fully aware that this is a difficult situation to be dropped into. Chelsea are absolute mess in September when he took over. It's virtually a different squad now to what he had when he first came in. These are things which, all right, they sound like excuses, but they're just reality, and it's things that fans don't think about or don't take into account because all they want is the result, and they don't care or don't think about anything else that actually goes into getting the result. And look, I think he absolutely hasn't done well enough. It's as simple as that. There's no denying it. But there are reasons for that, and whether people want to be sympathetic with those reasons or choose to listen to those reasons is a different thing. But it's difficult for me. It's an interesting situation at Chelsea because if Roman Abramovich was in charge, Graham Potter would never have been appointed because he's not a big name. He's not won anything. So this is a totally different route that Chelsea are going down in terms of we're trying to move away, which I think a lot of people want to do in the fan base. We want to move away from being a hiring and firing club where we're changing a manager every 18 months to try and be a club that's more long-term with more of a stable manager and have sustained success over a number of years with one person, try and build a squad that doesn't become like a pick and mix of 4 or 5 managers, different players, and you get into the mess that we're in now. And I do believe that something like this has been waiting to happen for a while, and it's just happened to come at a time when Graham Potter's taken over. Because look, the Champions League's great to win that, fantastic. It's great to win, the Club World Cup for the first time in our history, to win the European Super Cup. Yeah, these are all great things, but ultimately we want to win the Premier League again, and we have been absolutely nowhere near winning the league since Conte won it in 2017. I think I seen the other day we finished 30 points, 26, 19, and 19 points off winning the league in the last 4 seasons. That's nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And the only way for me, and I think football's changed now, I don't think you can just sack a manager, parachute someone in, and then they win the league that season, unless the squad is literally there waiting to win and you've just got to do your thing. I don't think football works like that anymore. I think the game's evolved a little bit from those days when Conte came in and won a title, from when Jose came back and won the league straight away. Like, I don't think that necessarily happens anymore. And I think the way forward is to build something like Liverpool did under Klopp, like obviously Manchester City have done, like Arsenal are starting to do under Mikel Arteta as well. Let's not forget that, I think Arsenal were in a similar place to we are now in terms of fans trying to hound the manager out of the club, and now they all love him. I'm not saying that we're going to be in that situation in a couple of years' time or whatnot, but it kind of the point stands, and I'm all for giving a manager time, and that's something we've not seen at Chelsea, and it does need to happen. But at the same time, that time can't be afforded at the expense of just losing every week. There's got to be like a happy medium to find. There's got to be like, look, we understand we're not going to win every game, but what we can't accept is 2 wins in 15. I can understand like a couple of wins in 5 games. You think, okay, it's not great, but it's not a disaster. But then at the same time, when 2 wins in 5 becomes 2 wins in 15 or whatever, it becomes a bigger issue. And whatever the issues are at Chelsea, the quality we've got on the pitch, you should never be going 2 wins in 15 games. So yes, I'm for giving managers time, and I'm desperate for Graham Potter to be a success because I think he's a very likable guy, and I think he's a good coach. But ultimately, the proof's in the pudding. He's not delivering the results on the pitch. Yes, there's circumstances, but that matters little when you're losing. And he's fully aware of this himself. He's not stupid. He'll know the results have simply got to improve, because if we were to lose on Sunday, like one game you don't want to lose is to Tottenham as a Chelsea fan. And to lose on Sunday, you saw a lot. I was at the game against Southampton on Saturday, and a lot of people turned after that game. A lot of people were on the fence before the game. We lost that one. A lot of people lost faith in the manager after that game. Now, if they're losing faith in the manager after losing to Southampton, think how bad it's going to be if we lose to Tottenham on Sunday. I don't think there'll be many people left to back him. So I guess the long answer is, like, I'm desperate for him to do well. I think he's a likable guy. I think he's a very good coach. But ultimately, you've got to pick the results up. Otherwise, you're not going to be here.
But is it the manner of how you lose? Oh, sorry.
No, yeah. There's losing and there's losing. There's
so
losing.
Like it's 1-0 or 3-0. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you've still lost and it's not great. But for me, it would be. I mean, losses are lost, but it would be a lot worse if we were getting hammered in games like 3 or 4-0, and we were just never in the game at all. Like, there's losing and losing. Like, we're losing games 1-0. It's not good, and we shouldn't be losing to some of the teams we're losing to. But it's not like we're not in the game or that we've not played well in parts of it. Like, in a lot of those games, maybe bar Southampton, we've done more than enough in the last 4 or 5 games to have got positive results. We're just not doing it. But ultimately, like, a lot of losing's losing. You can dress it up and say, we didn't play that badly. We only lost 1-0. We still lost. And yes, there's different ways of losing and things like that. But, it becomes a point where you're like, we played all right, but we lost. We don't want to become a team like that where we sort of like applaud the fact that, we've lost, but it's, we only lost 1-0. You know, that's not the elite mentality we've had over the last 20 years that's seen us have so much success. You know, we demand the utmost from the players. And if we start letting sort of mediocrity creep in, then that can become quite dangerous. So yeah, we just got to keep going. We're in a bad place right now. And whether Graham Potter's the right guy or not remains to be seen. But we do have to start thinking more long term. And I do want him to do well, because he's a Chelsea manager. And if he does well, the team does well. And that's ultimately what everyone wants. But right now it is pretty hard to see where the positive results are coming from.
Jack, is Chelsea a good example and a reminder across the bow for Spurs fans that it's not all about spending hundreds of millions of pounds on players for instant success?
Yeah, I am one of the people who am not an Enic out or an Enic in person. I take, because I'm not comfortable siding one way or another, but I am comfortable defending the fact that Tottenham has spent enough money to be competitive. You don't have to spend as much as Chelsea has to be good. I think you can find. Now, you could argue that some of those contracts that Chelsea has given out are a little bit unique because of their efforts to comply with squad cost control and spread those contracts out and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of gross dollars committed, you know, whatever 600 million, you don't have to. You have to be judicious with the money you spend. And we have not been judicious with the money we've spent since the stadium opened. I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, just look at the players who are out on loan, and we know for a fact that it has not, worked out. And you could say, like you're saying, there could be circumstances. Some of those players could have worked out because clearly they've done all right in certain cases when they've moved on. But the reality is they didn't work at Tottenham, and so you spend a lot of money that's not on the pitch. So and we've spent enough. I think, my opinion, and there's a lot of talk about now that if United is going to get taken over and they get some infusion of cash like they need it, but maybe they'll spend it better. I don't know. And they've got a project manager. You've got Newcastle with a project manager. You got Liverpool who you assume will continue on, and we don't know what's going to happen with the City thing with the Premier League, but let's assume they get off without major pain. No, we may not have the revenue of some of those clubs, but we are going to generate enough. I mean, the 430 million that we generated is going to go up by about 50 or 60 million the next cycle because we got Champions League money in. We had an operating profit of 114 million pounds. We have enough money. Yeah, we owe a lot of money. I get that, but we're generating enough cash to compete. We just don't spend it well. And until we get the recruitment right, we're not going to be to Charlie's point, we're going to be just in that space between, 4 and 6 probably, but not really making that real challenge to the top. But we could, if we get a manager in place who wants to stay here and we get the recruitment right. But, right now we're in that no person zone because don't know if Conte is going to be here. Don't know if Perisic is going to be banned, which we expect from football. So I don't know where it's going to go from here. But money, I keep telling people, is not the issue. You can complain about Levy and Enic and their property business and all you want, but there's still being enough money put into the football club to compete for trophies. It's just we aren't executing in the recruitment and the manager spot, in my opinion.
Cam, are you a little bit jealous as a Spurs fan of what Chelsea have done with the transfer market and the money they spent?
A little bit, yes, because I think as much as it's a bit of a mess at the moment, I think they will come good, provided whether they stick with Potter or they get another manager that will obviously extract performance out of them. The strange thing about Chelsea is, and Charlie might agree here, is a lot of the juniors they've scouted those juniors so well, your Mounts, your Abrahams, but they're selling them on, sold or will look like selling them on. Look, they've recruited some great players over the years. I can't deny that. Whereas our recruitment's been up and down. Like we've got the Suns and others, but as Jack alluded to, our recruitment and scouting's been horrendous, and development as well. So, yes, I am a bit jealous, but I think I agree with Jack that it's about the recruitment and scouting where that's where the appropriation of wise funds goes into. If you can get the right player that can perform and you have a club that can develop the talent, good things will happen. I don't think it's just a matter of checkbook money all the time. I think that you've got to have that balance, and Tottenham clearly hasn't had that over the years. So yes, I'm jealous, but also I think we've got to fix our own backyard up as well within the scouting and department.
And I should add, it's not just scouting; it's also the inability to sell players.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So we rank at the bottom in terms of transfer money in from sales versus Chelsea's always at the top. So again, their player trading at Chelsea's always been vastly superior to ours. Liverpool's been better. City hasn't done that much, obviously as much, but yeah, that's another big issue, is that inability to cash in on players when you should be able to sell high. We just hang on until there's no asset.
Yeah. 100%.
To be fair, though, Chelsea have a lot more players to sell than we do.
No question. That's no doubt about that. How
Charlie,
big is your spot? Oh, sorry.
I know, it's ridiculous. I don't even know how big it is. It's
so I think it's about.
big,
I think it's 31 or 33 players. Like it's and that's before you move on. Like that's another thing as well. Like it's hard to juggle a squad that size. Plus, you're dealing with a lot of players that are going to be unhappy that they're not playing. That's a tough thing to juggle. Like when the team's winning and you're doing well, it's easier to manage those people and that aren't playing because the team's winning. When you're doing crap like we are now and the team's not winning and you're still not playing, then that becomes even more difficult. So yeah, look, I mean, it sounds like excuses, but like it's I think Chelsea is one of the toughest jobs in football, generally, and particularly right now as well.
In terms of
can I just ask a question there? Yeah. Just what are your thoughts on selling off all your juniors, though, mate? Like your Abrahams and maybe Mount and others.
It works two ways. The academy for a number of years have been useless at Chelsea in terms of we'd win the FA Youth Cup most years on the spin, and yet hardly any of these guys were coming through to the senior team. And now we've had players coming through, like Reece James has come through as a mainstay. We've had obviously Mason Mount's through. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I know, is not here now, probably hasn't got a long-term future at Chelsea, but he's played some part in the first team. Loftus-Cheek, Conor Gallagher. We've got a group of guys now that are coming through. And in terms of selling players, like Abraham's gone, no issue of that to me, because it's the academy, in my view, is twofold. You either produce great players for the first team that don't cost you anything, other than the initial investment and the training, or you develop good players that aren't quite good enough for your team, but they're more than good enough for someone else's team, and they'll make you a good few millions. So it's twofold. It's a pathway to the first team to get good players, and it's also a money making machine. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I love every single player to play from the academy and get into the first team. Of course, that'd be great in an ideal world, but that doesn't happen. So the next best thing is to get money for them, and that's what we're doing. And I think a lot of the homegrown players are probably going to be moved on in the summer. Obviously, Mason Mount, it's do or die in the summer. You sign the contract or you're being sold, because the ownership don't want to have situations where players go into the last year of their contracts. You're signing a new deal or you're being sold. Simple as that. And I kind of respect that. But yeah,
novel concept.
Yeah, it's look. I look, it's obviously you want to have a core of players, or some players that have come through the ranks, know what it's like to play for the club, know what it means, will kind of die for the badge on the pitch. Like whatever you think, and no disrespect to foreign players that come in, they won't get it as much as players will that have been at the club from say 6, 7, 8 years of age and have come through the ranks, have that affiliation with the fans. You might go on and be a very good player for Chelsea, but you won't get it as much or understand the club as much as if you've come through the ranks. You do want a certain amount of those guys around in the dressing room, and providing they're good enough, then they can be an important part of the squad. But there's also no denying it that they're also very good for bringing sizable money in. Like Conor Gallagher, for example, we could have sold him to Everton for £45 million in January. And that money would come in, would be pure profit on the books. So yeah, it's kind of two ways. I want these guys to do well, but at the same time, I'm aware that we do need to raise funds, and these guys are some of our most valuable assets.
Charlie, in terms of the 50,000 players that you signed in January, which one of them do you really have high hopes for? You know, is there one of that which you think that guy is the one that's going to really?
I'll kind of take it in two parts. So I think there's some players that have got potential to be very good, and I think there's some players now which are. I love João Felix.
Yeah,
I think he's a fantastic player. Like I was at Craven Cottage when he made his debut, and I don't know what it was, whether it was a combination of what we'd watched this season had been so bad that someone coming on and just doing the basics that any good attacking player should do was like an unbelievable thing, or he's got a touch of class about him. And I think it was obviously a combination of both. He's far better than what we've seen, and he's just got something about him. The way that he reads the games, particularly against West Ham, the way his eye for a pass, I said his movement, his skill on the ball. He's just like everything goes through him already, and he's been here for 4 or 5 games. You can tell he's got that quality. Whether we're going to get him in the summer or not, I don't really know. But I think that's a great signing, and you can instantly tell that like the attack already revolves around him. And then the other one I would say is probably Enzo Fernandez. Again, like the money spent. Okay, we could argue all day about that. We've paid the money. It's not the player's fault. He's here to do the business on the pitch. And I like what I've seen from him so far. I'm not going to pretend that I watched much of him at River Plate or any of him. But, you hear things, and he was kind of an exciting player. He goes to Benfica, watched him in the Champions League a few times, looks a good player. But then you see him at the World Cup, and you're like, all right, this guy's pretty good. But you're still taking a gamble in terms of buying someone who's had 6 months in a top 5 European league with Benfica, has had a handful of Champions League experiences, and has played well at the World Cup. You'd expect him to develop into a good player, but you're still taking a massive gamble. But, the midfield has needed to be revamped for a number of years now. It's the first midfield player we've signed since 2018. It's long overdue, and we need to add more to it. But in terms of the ones that I think, I like these guys, Enzo Fernandez and João Felix. But I think in terms of others that perhaps aren't going to quite make an impact just yet, but I like Mykhailo Mudryk, the look of him. His cameo at Anfield was great. Obviously, we've not seen too much from him since. But again, people don't take into account the kid's 22. His country that he lived in has been decimated by war. The Ukrainian league was paused in November. He'd played no minutes since then. And we're just building his fitness back up. Like, people don't take these things into account. You're not just a footballer. They're a human as well. Like, you're moving from Ukraine to London as a young kid, having experienced something so traumatic in your homeland. It's going to, your performances on the pitch might not be that great to start with. And you've just got to have that patience. But yeah, Mudryk, I'm excited by as well. I like the look of Madueke. Yes, he's raw, but there's ability there. And another one that I think's done a lot better than any Chelsea fans expected us to do. Badiashile at the back's been immense. Looks like he's played here for years.
Good. Interesting. Just before we sort of round up that comprehensive Chelsea review, question from Cheesewam John. If Potter was to go, who would you want to replace him?
This is another thing that's tricky as well, because you look at, let's say that a lot of Chelsea fans get their wish and Graham Potter's removed. The options out there aren't great. Pochettino and Zidane, 2 names that get mentioned quite a lot. Both of those guys were available in September when Thomas Tuchel was sacked. Both were overlooked. So I don't think those guys suddenly 4 or 5 months later are suddenly going to be the right guy to come. And look, I think Poch did a great job at Spurs. Did the best he can. I look at his spell at PSG. He was dire. He's you listen to what PSG fans say. One of their worst managers they've had in recent times. Did a terrible job there. I haven't got an issue with the fact that he's managed Tottenham. I just if you're going to replace Graham Potter with an upgrade per se, people say, Potter's come in and why is he at Chelsea? He's not won anything. Potter's won nothing either. All right, yeah, he's won the French league at PSG, but I don't want to disrespect that achievement, but whoever manages PSG pretty much wins the French league. So, it's not really a good barometer to use. So, if your gripes with Potter is he's not a winner, and then the club replaces them with Pochettino, who again is not a winner per se either, then are we really progressing forward? Yes, you could argue that the project and the younger players, all those tools kind of suit Pochettino, but he's yet to prove that he can win anything in a big league. And then I look at Zidane and you think, one, he can't speak English, which is not great, and then two, I'm not disrespecting his what he's done as a manager at Real Madrid. No manager's ever won 3 Champions Leagues in a row. Phenomenal. But at the same time, that Madrid team is unbelievable. La Liga is not a competitive league. It's basically Madrid versus Barca. Atletico Madrid chipping with the odd title, maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 6, 7 years or whatever. And you then look at, and I think he's totally unproven outside Real Madrid. No one actually knows how good this guy is in a job that isn't ready-made for him. Like no one knows. So again, that's a massive gamble. And people say, "Oh, we command the respect of the dressing room." Yeah, he would because of what he's done as a player. But as a manager, yeah, he's done well at Real Madrid, but he's still massively unproven as far as I'm concerned. So in terms of a manager that comes in, I don't really know because I haven't got a name that stands out straight away to me. I think, oh yeah, he's definitely the right guy because it's clear that Bowley and Clearlake, etc., they want a longer term manager, more of a quote unquote project manager. You're not going to find one of those in February or March. So then you're looking at an interim situation until the summer. And who's going to come in on an interim basis? So you then think, well, if that's the situation, you may as well just plod along until the summer with Potter. And then if he's not good enough or the results are still crap, you then get rid of him in the summer when more managers are available. So I know I've not really answered that question, but my actual answer for it is there's no credible candidate out there right now that I think would be suitable to take the job. And that's just, it's not a cop-out. That's just kind of the reality of the situation we're in. There's not anyone that I'd actually take that's available right now.
Yeah. And I think in many ways, Cam, it's the same for Tottenham, isn't it? With Conte at the moment, if Conte was to leave mid-season.
Well, can we have Stellini? No. I think Poch is pretty much, he'll return. I think, look, what's Conte gone through this year? He's gone through 3 friends of his that have died. He's obviously had emergency surgery. His family's based in Italy, which is a big one. And I'm thinking, are you going to renew a contract? I don't think so, as much as it's a well-paid job. It's either Tuchel or Poch, and look, HG and the guys were talking about this week. I think Poch is still close to a lot of contacts at the club. I wouldn't say it's a dead cert, but I would say it's not far off being a dead cert that he is coming in. Initially, I think we're going through a cycle again. I think we've got the Adojis, we've got other players coming in next season where they're younger. And I think to start that cycle again, maybe Pochettino being that father figure for a lot of those younger players like he was back in the 15, 16, 17, to actually build the team up from not scratch, but from a different base. I can see it happening almost as a dead cert.
Just on that, do you not think as a club though for Tottenham that want to move forward, do you not think if Conte goes in the summer, which I think many people expect him to do, is appointing Pochettino not a step backwards?
I think it's a step sideways.
But it's not. The key thing is it's not a forward step, is it? Is what I'm trying to get at.
No, I get what you're saying. We're not, like, compared to Chelsea, we're not going to buy 10 players or 9 players, whatever it was in the window, right? They just don't have the same amount of cash. And I think there's already players going to be coming in per se. So Pochettino was good at actually building the team spirit for those first couple of years. So you had your Ericssons, your Delis, you could go back to the Vertonghen's. There was a good team spirit about the team, about them. Yes, we didn't win anything. I get it. But I don't know besides Tuchel, and Tuchel's quite a strong persona as well.
Do you want another Chelsea manager?
Yeah. I can't see. Well, I think we all agree Conte is not going to renew, or highly unlikely.
Do you think that's a given? Is that what the general consensus around the Spurs fans is, that he's probably not going to stay next season?
I think he's mentally shot, and I think partly I think if you had 3, think about it for you guys. If you're working remotely away from your family, you've had 3 good friends, maybe 1 or 2 of them close, die. and you've had to go in for emergency surgery. I mean, that's a pretty crazy 12 months in and of itself. Personally, I think that he's on good enough money. He could take a year or two off and recuperate. So I personally think he's not going to renew. I'd be open to Poch. I think it's just maybe a step sideways or back. I'm not saying it's a step forward, but we also have to admit that some of that squad needs refreshing anyway, some of those positions. And you've got to look at the issue of Kane as well. Will he re-sign? Which, if Poch comes in, I don't think that would be the case. I think Kane would want to leave. Not because he hates or dislikes Poch. I think Kane's at the point of career where he does want to win trophies. And I think if you're bringing back someone like Poch, as a hypothetical, I think we're going to be getting money in for Kane because I think he wants to win things. And I think we're going through another cycle of actually not rebuilding, but, restarting again in a smaller sense.
I mean, I suppose you could look at it as well. Like, if this could be like a slightly cynical view, perhaps, but like if you had two managers that are born winners, have won everywhere they go, and if Mourinho and Conte can't win at Tottenham, could you not argue that then, well, who is going to win trophies at Tottenham? If you've got two of the best in the business at winning trophies and they've not been able to do it here, who else? Like, just as a general sort of conversation, who else is going to? I'm not saying Spurs are going to go forever and not win something. Someone will come to Tottenham and win, but like in the immediate future, if you can't win with Conte or Mourinho, who can Tottenham win with?
I think that's an excellent point because that goes back to what I was saying: is the structure? Is there something in the structure of the club? Is it the chairman can't keep his can't. Like if you just, I'm not an Enic out person because you never know who you're going to get, but I wouldn't mind a Levy out situation, at least where get away from the football operations of the club, work on your property management and get people in that are going to make the decisions. And you just say, here's your budget. And it is what it is. You spend it the way you want to type of approach. Because I'm, on this question of Pochettino, I mean, I think that right now I think the fan base has been through we're going to ignore Nuno for a moment. The Pochettino, the Mourinho and Conte era is you never really felt like the manager necessarily wanted to be there, or you felt like the manager thought he was bigger than the club. And I think a lot of that attitude of ultimately when you're winning, it's fine. But when you're not winning like you think you should, and you're playing turgid football by a lot of people, you get tired of that. So you say, okay, well, what makes me feel warm? Well, remember how much Pochettino loves the club. Don't you see all the social media pictures? See how he's still in London and how much he loves the club and all this sort of stuff. We just want someone to love us. And I didn't grow up a Tottenham fan, obviously. I 40 of my 52 years were not spent supporting Tottenham. So I can be a lot less emotional and nostalgic, although he is the one manager that I would identify with because I came in the Redknapp era, but that was towards the tail end, really. So my feeling is it's always easy to ask, you want the people out. It's much harder to make that decision who you want in. And Tottenham needs a manager that's going to, like you're saying, we don't have the money or not going to spend the money to be able to fire a manager 18 months because we can just recycle the players and give the next guy a big check and let him buy what he needs. So we do need somebody who's more like an Eddie Howe or Pochettino type model to build a club because we now have the revenue. I think so many people just say, oh, well, Poch was close and we didn't back him when we needed to because all the funds went to the stadium. Right when we were chasing Chelsea down, we were chasing Leicester down, we were right there. We just needed 3 or 4 more quality players to enter the squad to refresh a little bit, and he didn't get that chance. Well, some people said, yeah, he did, but then he got fired. He finally got backed, and he brought him Tanguy and that group, but then got sacked. Well, the football had been abysmal. I mean, our league form had been borderline relegation form at that point. So he'd been poor. He'd been poor for a year, calendar year. So I mean, it's hard. I think it's nostalgia that people want Poch back, and I agree with you, Charlie. It's not a step forward at best. It's a sideways step. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but I think we should be looking at other options.
In saying that, though, when Chelsea had that, go.
Like I was just going to say, I think the majority of Spurs fans, though, we want Conte in. That's what we want. We want Conte to stay. We want Levy to continue to back Conte in the way that he has, and hopefully to start to produce some good football. I don't think any of us want Conte out because, as you all described brilliantly, there isn't a better alternative out there for Tottenham. I can't think of one. The same that you can't, Charlie, for Chelsea. So it's quite an interesting one. So ideally, Conte stays. We back Conte, and we have success, and he wins us a trophy. But if he does go, the options are not good. Sorry, Cam.
Dean Freeman's just hit the nail on the head, and I was going to actually mention that 18 months. I think Chelsea had a ban at that point of time as well, in terms of transfers. But Dean's comment there hit the nail on the head. When we were ascending, when we were actually not far off the top there, we should have been probably getting one, maybe two quality players in to actually better perfect that squad. Why we didn't get anyone in during that period of time, and we're probably still paying for those penalties for today, with regards to not getting the additions to actually solidify our standing in that comp. Now, I can't go back to the positions I would have liked, but that 18 months, I think we're still paying penalties for not bringing in one, maybe two players. It's just that was why we didn't do that was beyond.
So I'm told, Cam, that two things there. One, we didn't spend big money in that 18-month period because we needed to get the books as good as we can, to get our credit rating as high as we can, to spread the stadium debt at the lowest interest we could get over the 30 years or whatever we spread it. So we needed as much cash in the bank as possible to support that. I was also told that we did offer players, there was money available to Pochettino and there were players offered, but at that point with the team he had, he felt for the money we had available, we couldn't better what he already had in his squad. I don't know how, I certainly know the financial one is true. How much about the secondary bit about Pochettino turned down players, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I get it. Like, I've watched the accounts show a week or two back, whenever it was, but I get that. I get that you need to have the cash to obviously have the credit rating and all that, but we are a football club and you're wanting to win something. I'm not going to argue the point there with you. How could I put it? We were not far off winning things back then, and now we've just retracted. And
don't get me wrong,
Delhi's are gone. Yeah.
I just think
I'm not saying it's right.
I was going to say sorry. I just think it goes back to, if you don't invest when you're on top, you're going to get left behind because everyone else will.
100%,
and that's basically the situation. And I think it's happened to Tottenham in that 2-year period, and they're paying the price for it perhaps still now. And I think it's happened to Chelsea to a degree as well, where we won that Champions League, not because we had a good squad, but because we managed to somehow create an environment where everyone performed well above their actual capabilities. And then we got to the summer and all we thought, and I felt it as well, like a lot of fans did, all we felt we needed was a number 9 and that was the missing piece. And yet we win the Champions League and all we do is sign Lukaku, sign Saul on loan and bring in Bettinelli as a third choice keeper. And that was a disaster. You look back at that now, one of the worst windows we've ever had. And that was when we should have been having one of our best windows, and we didn't. And so, just that point is that, like, if you don't invest when you're on top, other teams will, and you just get left behind. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And look how many players have left since that coming back to Spurs. Look, in that 15, 16, 17 era. I mean, virtually it's most of the squad besides maybe your Sons, your Kanes, your Diers, Eric Dier, sorry.
And Lloris, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally that. What was hopeful back then is literally all they've either retired, been transferred elsewhere, left, with no, been sold off, what have you. And quite sad, to be honest. And we haven't really brought players into those equivalent positions. So, yeah.
Interesting. So, I guess moving on to Tottenham then. As we head into this Chelsea game. Last 6 games, Spurs have beaten Fulham 1-0, Preston in the Cup 3-0, Man City 1-0, lost to Leicester 4-1, lost to Milan 1-0, and last week we beat what I thought was a very poor West Ham side 2-0. One word I guess I use to describe Tottenham in that period is inconsistent at best. Jack, how do you see Tottenham's form coming into this game?
I don't expect it to be anything other than we might be brilliant and we might be terrible. I have no expectations. What I do expect is to see virtually the exact same lineup as we had last match, because if there's because we're gonna maybe there might be one swap, maybe Sarr comes in for Skipp or something minor like that, but I expect the same lineup. I expect that to be matched up with the lineup that Chelsea, something I'd think very close to what you guys played against Dortmund. I think that's probably, with maybe one change or so. I don't know your squad because of the turnover as well, but I would expect that to be versus what we saw against Southampton. Maybe your what's the pronunciation of Badishi?
Badishi, he'll come back in at centre half, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I would think he would. But other than that, I expect to see the Dortmund lineup, and so, I have no expectations. I mean, again, when it's City, I expect to win. Actually, when it's Arsenal, I expect to split. Although obviously that didn't work out too well this year. But with Chelsea, I just expect to lose. Period. I mean, I don't care why. I don't understand it, quite frankly, but I just don't expect to win. So, but on paper, realistically, I thought the West Ham game showed a lot of promise, and I think that there's nothing about on paper when I look at Chelsea's squad and the back line that worries me. They're impenetrable. I mean, they've got a good defensive record, but I'm not thinking that it's impossible for us to score. But I still expect, because it's Chelsea, that something in the brain of the Tottenham player just can't process that they can beat them. I mean, it's been I've only seen, following 12 years, how many wins have I actually won? There's the 5-1, there's the Delhi that had the 2 goals. I mean, it's just it's so rare that we actually have won. And since I've been watching, I just don't expect anything.
Yeah, I mean, in the new stadium at home, it's been dire, hasn't it? Literally dire. 1 goal, Sonny, I think, in the 1-1 draw back in 2000, if I remember correctly. I think that's it. I think otherwise it's Chelsea all the way, isn't it?
Yeah, and the 3 losses last right back to back. I mean, we weren't even in the games. They might have been close in score, but we were never even challenging or threatening at all one time. So.
Cam, what's your expectation leading into the game with our form at the moment?
It's up and down. So obviously the game's at the middle of the night. So when I wake up, it's like my mood changes at breakfast time as to we won. Yes, it's going to be a good Monday. We lost. It's going to be a depressing Monday. Or it's Sunday. It's Chelsea. It's a London derby for me. So Chelsea always arrive for these derbies. So I understand Chelsea's been abysmal on form, but derbys go out the window. I do think we're going to score this game. I would like to see the team similar to last week and have Sonny coming off the bench. I think Sonny needs a mental cattle branding in terms he just needs to mentally be stimulated to actually engage in the game. So I can see a guy like him scoring, but the defense I'm not settled on. So to me, it's going to have a draw all over it based upon both teams' inconsistencies. I'm a bit hesitant this game because Chelsea always grow a leg in this game, no matter what. They outplayed us earlier in the season, and I've got a feeling Cucurella is going to lock up Kulusevski like he has in previous games. So it'll be a chess match. I
don't know if Cucurella's going to play. I think Chilwell's going to play.
I would expect Chilwell to play, and I'd like Chilwell to play. But at the same time, I think Graham Potter's been very sort of maybe erring on the side of caution in terms of how he manages these players' minutes who have been coming back from long injury layoffs. And yes, I think Chilwell should play. Whether he will or not is another issue. But if I had to make a decision on it, I would expect Chilwell to start this game. But again, if it's Cucurella, maybe it makes it a little bit easier because he's been struggling. But I think he goes.
He literally tagged him. Yeah, he's been tagging Kulusevski literally just he's been like glue to him in past games, particularly when he was at Brighton. Potter's still a cagey customer, managerially speaking. I think it'll be a chess match this Sunday for him and Steele Enic. I'm hesitant. I'm probably going to lean to a draw because I think both teams are coming at opposite end of the spectrums in terms of their issues. But when you get them on the field, I think I can't predict one way or the other. I can see Sonny coming off the bench, though.
I think when you look at the league table, you realise just how important this game is for both sides for different reasons. Obviously, if we want to stay clinging on to any hope of top four, I think we need to get a win this week, and we'll get into the other fixtures as we go through later on. For Chelsea, John, that's pretty grim. You lose tomorrow, you could find yourself out in the top 10, right?
Oh yeah, mate. We've been hanging on to our top half status thanks to results going for us. So yeah, I mean, how times have changed. I mean, this time last year I was getting ready to go to Wembley for the Carabao Cup final. Now we're 10th and in desperate need of a win to try and get any sort of semblance of form going again. But yeah, look, the table doesn't make good reading, and it's interesting because normally, as you say, like, you guys don't feel confident about this game because we always beat Tottenham. But at the same time, for us, we're coming into this game where we're in terrible form. We don't expect to get any points anywhere. Like, I'd take a goal right now. Would be great. And yet we're coming into this game knowing how good our record is here, but also knowing that we're in really bad form. And Graham Potter knowing that he has to win this game. So I don't know, is he going to come out and is he going to go for it? Or is he going to sit in and try and nick something on the break or nick something from a set play? I'm not really sure, because if we were to go goals down or a goal down in this game, we don't win the game, in my opinion, because we can't score more than one goal. So I think the only way we're going to win this game, unless we miraculously turn up and something amazing happens, is we're going to have to keep it tight at the back. And we're going to win this game 1-0 because I cannot see us scoring more than one goal at this point. It's obviously, I could be proven totally wrong, but going on what we've seen so far this season and in recent matches we've been playing, we're going to win by a single goal, or it's going to be a 1-1 draw. It's as simple. That's kind of where we're at right now. So whilst Chelsea fans expect to beat Tottenham because we always have done in the past, at the same time there's a realization that we also don't expect to win any games. And just because it's Tottenham it changes that slightly, but there's also the acceptance and the realization that, we've done nothing. We haven't looked anything like a winning football team for the last month or more. So I don't really know how Potter's going to approach it. It'll be interesting because he does have to win this game. And if we go a goal down, as I said, then we've got a massive problem because we don't score any.
Jack, do you have Charlie's talking about potentially a 1-0 win? Do you have any faith that we will concede fewer than 2 goals? Because I've got this feeling we're going to concede 3 tomorrow at least on Sunday.
Oh no! 3. Oh wow! No, I
really do. Honestly, it's Chelsea. I'm negative.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I don't. That's not how I see this playing out. I expect the concentration to be there in the back, and I expect it to be. If we lose, I agree. It's a 1-0 type of thing. I don't see, unless something magical happens for Chelsea that hasn't been seen in the last 10, 15 games. I just don't see them giving up. I mean, we'd have, if Forster pulls a Nick Pope and does something just completely, batty, I guess, I mean, I'm assuming that we had to finish up 11v11 and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I don't fear getting thrashed by multiple goals from Chelsea. I just say, will we have the mentality to play it tight and hopefully, like to your point, Charlie, if we do get up a goal, then yes, I think then that's the secret. If we score first, then that changes the game. But no, I don't think I really can't see Chelsea scoring more than 1 unless we massively help them, which we're capable of.
More than capable of. Cam, in terms of scoring goals against Chelsea with their defensive record, I mean, despite the fact we are in the top 10 scores and you're 3rd in the Premier League, it doesn't feel like scoring goals comes easy for us, does it, in games? So are you confident going up against this Chelsea back line?
Well, they're quite good defensively, I think, judging from the stats you showed earlier before. I hazard a guess that Potter, as much as a smart guy, is going to set up a bit somewhat defensively because you've got Richarlison, Kane, you've got Kulusevski there as well. It's a matter of cracking the nut in terms of once you've cracked it, I think you can probably go in for one or two more. I think it'll be a mental thing, but yeah, it'll be tough at first, but I think if you can do it once, the crowd gets on their back, we could probably get one or two more. But I still have issues at the other end for us as well. So who comes in?
I think the thing about Spurs is if somebody wants to play with us, somebody's going to come out of their shell and play expansive football. And we are solid at the back, then we're teed up for the counter and we can get in behind that back line. I mean, that's when we play well. It's when the other team wants to play more expansively. If Potter decides this team can't break a team down to save their life, so I'm going to sit in more deep and keep this thing scoreless as long as possible, that would be the trick. So I don't, Charlie, what you expect in terms of the style of play that you're going to come, because again, I haven't seen you much since Potter came in.
We don't have a style of play. That's kind of that's where we're at right now. There isn't really a style of play. There's been glimpses in certain moments in certain games where you kind of see, that's what he's trying to do. First half an hour at West Ham, play some fantastic stuff, play some really great stuff in the Champions League against Dortmund as well, and you can kind of see what he's looking to do. But talking about style or identity on a consistent basis, it's been non-existent.
Well, if you take that, so in those examples of the Dortmund game and the 30 minutes against West Ham, that looked like it was working, what is it? What is the pattern?
Moving the ball quickly is one thing. I know that's kind of sounds like an obvious thing to do, but so often we'll get the ball into midfield and then just kills any momentum, takes a lot of touches, or play it sideways, play it backwards or whatever, rather than kind of go for a risky pass. Like now that we've got players in the team that their first thought is to move the ball forward, then we started to create a few more opportunities rather than knocking it sideways, knocking it backwards. We have started to create a few more opportunities. So I think that's part of it. I think it's just getting the ball out to the players that are going to cause damage. Get it to them as much as possible and get it to them as quickly as possible. I know that kind of sounds obvious, but it's not something that we do that much.
Yeah, but Jack, can I ask you a question? You said if they play defensively, if we try and get them on the counter, and I didn't watch the entire game last week, but does Richarlison work well on the counter? That's the question, because of Son and Kane clearly, and Kulusevski to a great extent, but Richarlison hasn't had much time to really bed in there and into that system. I know. What are your thoughts there? Because Richarlison's probably still got to bed himself in how he's going to be, because he's a straight up 9 to me. Yes, he can play left and
he's a 9.
Plays on the right, but he's a 9. So can we play on the counter and succeed on the counter with Richarlison instead of Son?
Well, I mean, I think you can for a couple of reasons. One is that Kane is the best number 10 in the Premier League, in my opinion. And number 2, Richarlison's fast and big and strong. And so if you just play the ball out in front of him, he can get there. Now, I don't trust his finishing the way we've trusted Sonny in the past, of course. But I think you can. And the advantage that he brings is that he does something that he can press in a way that Sonny can't. So, yes, you clearly give up something on the counter if your outlet for Kane is Richarlison, because he's not a clinical finisher. That's true. But in other aspects of the game, in order to harry the back line, maybe tire the defenders out a little bit, also defensively speaking, I think he's clearly a better option than Sonny. I mean, Sonny's not, it's not that he won't work. It's just physically he's got more to bring to the table to help protect the left side. So that's why I wanted to see him start. Plus, he just hasn't enough run of games. I think you got to give him a chance to get on the field. And then to the point, I think Sonny coming off the bench, if it's 0-0 at 70, 72 minutes and you're bringing Sonny in, I got to imagine that Charlie, I thrilled about that sub.
It's a dangerous process. Just on Richarlison though, obviously coming for big money in the summer, Chelsea were kind of had some interest in him as well. Obviously, he goes to Tottenham, £60 million. Hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet. How's he viewed at Spurs as to what he's done so far? Because I know he's not had a lot of opportunities, and a lot of fans, think he should have had more opportunities playing, and he's not played that much. But is it not a bit of a worry that the fact is that it's virtually March and he's yet to score in the league, or is that kind of circumstantial, and fans have still got a lot of faith with him?
I still have faith in him, but I think he's been injured for parts of it as well. I think people forget that post the World Cup, and I think prior to as well. I think it's a system thing, but also I don't think he's had the same continuity around, one, because of his injuries, and two, because I think Conte's been playing clearly Kulusevski, Son and Kane, and Son to the point of trying to play him back to form unsuccessfully. So we've needed Stellini to come in there to actually change it up to an extent. So I don't think he's had the continuity in time, if you wanted to actually put it down to that. That's me, Jack or Craig.
Yeah, I would say I think he's still got a lot of credit in the bank, because one, we spent money on a player that the manager wanted, which is often not the case. And it also is the fact that if he hadn't had the World Cup he had, I think that got a lot of credit in the bank, because I think Spurs fans saw what he can do when he's played in his natural position. So for those of us who think that the number of days that Kane's going to be under contract are somewhat limited, I think people are like, okay, well, we at least have someone. He's not Kane. They're totally, completely different players, obviously, but at least we have someone who could come into that center forward spot already. And so as a result, I think he's still got a lot of credit in the bank. There was a little worrisome. He did have an open look against West Ham. Ball was cut back, I think, from Kulu, and he's 10, 12 yards from goal and rolls it right at the goalkeeper. Those things are a little worrisome when he gets those opportunities, but you could say, give him more opportunities and see how he does. So, I've always said that if we'd probably be challenged. If Son had a regular season and Richarlison had been impactful, we'd probably be challenging for the league. That's even though goal scoring isn't our problem, you can challenge for the league winning 4-2. So, it's just a matter that I think he's still got plenty of credit. What do you think, Craig?
I completely agree. Yeah, I've seen, obviously, season ticket holder. I watched him live, and I think it's not scoring goals, but when he does play, he just has this. He lifts the team a little bit. It's his tenacity. It's his drive. It's his commitment. It's his anger a little bit. He just oils piss in a great way for the opposition, and I love him. And I think I would love. He's not playing his best position. I think it's fair to say playing on that left hand side or that right side doesn't favour him. He is an out and out number 9, and I just want to see a game, and we'll never see it with Conte, unfortunately, where we have him up front and Kane behind him in the number 10. I think that would just be phenomenal. But you never know. It might happen soon. But yeah, Richarlison is quality, and you've got to think ahead as well. In the same way that Bowley doesn't want to have players going into their last year of the contract and not signing, he'll sell them. I think Levy is very much the same with our players, particularly our star players. You've seen it he did it with Eriksen. He made a point of saying to Mourinho that we had to sell Eriksen because we couldn't afford to let him go on a free. A club like ours can't be seen to do that from the documentary. So, Kane may be slightly different just because it is Kane. But if Kane is to go in the summer, we're going to need him. He's going to be the main man. So, be interesting. Okay, so in terms of Tottenham, one of the players from the last game who had a particularly strong game was Daddy Davis, playing at left wing back for the first time this season. Cam, do you want to see him retain his position at left wing back
for this game? Yes, I think if we go slightly more defensive, I wouldn't mind the same lineup as the previous game. Albeit I didn't watch the entire West Ham game. For the parts I did watch, I thought it wasn't the cleanest football, but I'd like to take a slightly defensive approach, for the first maybe half, just to see how Chelsea are, just to gauge Chelsea, and then probably go on the attack if we think we're on top of them. It's more of a gauging how Chelsea will be, because I just don't know too much about Chelsea to know how they're going to, one, set up, and two, how attacking they will be. And so I'd prefer to take a cautious approach per se. And look, Royal was close to man of the match last game as well on the other side. So, yeah, I'd keep Davies and actually keep Royal in there as your defensive wing-back in a sense.
Jack, Danny Davis for you as well, left wing-back?
Obviously, he's far less talented going forward than Ivan has been historically, but we all have seen the frailties and inability to defend one-on-one that Perisic brings to the table. And so, I, for my purposes, given our history with Chelsea and the fact that don't change a winning side, I would roll the exact same 11 out that we did last against West Ham. I mean, again, I think Chelsea. Everyone knows Chelsea's a far superior team to West Ham. I mean, it's not even close. But I'd roll the same side out. I don't see any reason to change it.
Bear in mind, Reece James isn't playing, I don't think, tomorrow, and he tore us a new one last
He's
time
not?
as well.
He is playing.
He's in.
I don't think Azpilicueta is playing because of the concussion protocols, etc. But now Reece James is back in. The reason, obviously, I was very annoyed why Silva and James, etc., were left out of the squad last
week.
He
was out for a long period of time.
No. He's back from injury now. But the reason why they were left out of the squad was because basically it come out, I think, on Monday that Potter had been advised by the medical staff not to play these guys because I don't know how they can tell this, because apparently they were highly susceptible to getting injured. I don't really know how they work that out, but that was why they didn't play. But no, they're back for this game. So yeah, Reece James will be back, which is a massive plus for Chelsea, because when he plays, we tend to play.
You're better.
We're better. Yeah.
Let's go defensive then.
All the more reason to have Davies as left wing back.
Yeah,
to your point,
100%.
I think Cam. Right.
Yeah. I thought he was out for a long period. So
he has been out for a long time, but he's back now. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't been concentrating on Chelsea, but I do recall that first game of the season, Reece James tore us to shreds, and I was like, yeah, hope he gets injured or gets suspended sometime soon, because he was brilliant.
So we expect Davis left wing back. Royal keeps his position after that man of the match display. Deservedly so, by the way, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, this is not the time to experiment with Porro.
Quite agreed. And then
you can Perisic and Porro in if you're chasing a goal, right? You're already, that gives you a lot more options than if you start with them and they don't perform or you give up goals. So I just say, since they clearly showed they have some ability going forward, then let's give them a shot to run out again. That'd be my call.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then midfield 2, Cam, same as last time. Did you go?
Yeah, same as last week. Yeah, I'll go Hojbjerg and Skipp. I'd almost say Sarr, but I think Skipp's got the experience there. It's not to say Sarr couldn't do it. I just think at this point of time, you'd probably go Skipp.
Jack, do you see a different player profile in Sarr and Skippy? What qualities does one have different qualities to the other, or do you see him as the same player profile? It's a straight swap if you was to replace one for the other.
No, they're not the same player. I mean, from what little we've seen of Sarr, I mean, I see Sarr is a little bit more in the Bissouma, and again, I've made the comparison as a Dembele-esque type of player in the sense that he is unfazed when under pressure. He does not get nervous carrying the ball with someone on his back, on his shoulder. He doesn't panic, and he's very comfortable in that role. So you can feed him. Skipp is a little bit more of he's not looking to hold the ball and break lines with his dribble. I'm not saying he can't do it, but he's looking more to make the combination of the pass and he's willing to get forward, clearly, and he's got the motor to do it. But I see him a little bit more akin to Hojbjerg than I do than Sarr is. So I think they're more of a swappable type of player, and a little bit more the way I saw Bissouma last year. Sarr and Bissouma are somewhat similar in that, at least that ability to, it's okay if there's a guy going to chase me out of the backfield on my hip. I'm going to still carry. You're not getting it off me, and I'm unfazed with what you're trying to do, and you're going to have to foul me to get it from me. And that was the way Dembele was back in the day, of course. Again, none of these players are as good as he was, because he's the greatest for me. But I think that's why I'd be fine if Sarr came into the game. He's been completely composed on the big stage, but I would expect Skipp. I would be surprised if he came in, but I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah. And then the final decision, I guess, is does Sonny stay on the bench, Richarlison keep his place? Yeah. Cam, I think
it's all mental. Yes, it's all mental with Son. It's if he comes off the bench, he's got a head of steam. I think because he's been given the position for most of the season, I don't think his work's there. He's mentally been, I wouldn't say lazy, but he's been comfortable. But now coming off the bench, he realises, I've got to work for this. It's kind of it's provocative to him in a sense. And look, he came off the bench and within minutes he scored. So it's completely mental with him. So yeah, definitely Son starting off.
Yeah.
What's the answer to this question, everybody? I bet even Charlie can answer this.
That doesn't need an answer, does it?
I mean, oh man, if that happens, the stadium will be singing not Antonio but Stellini.
I mean, and also the only way that can happen, if we're being honest, because of our injuries, is if Sonny and Richarlison play up top and Kane drops into that midfield three as a number 10. That's the only way that can happen. Because we haven't got any other options, have we?
I mean, I don't know if they've ever tried it on the training pitch, but you could bring Decky in the middle and play Richarlison and play Richarlison and Kane up top. As I've always said, I mean, again, the lineup clearly screams for a 4-4-2, but I realize I don't want to bring football back 20 years, but I mean, really I mean, if you look at the personnel that we have that could play that outside wing midfielder and a back four where Royal and Davies are your fullbacks, I think that just offers so much more. But I'm old fashioned, so.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, not a chance is our view. On Spurs, obviously some news coming out of Spurs this week that Dier is about to be offered a new contract. Cam, thoughts on that?
How long for? I haven't read up on that. Like
I don't know the length of the contract. I imagine it'll be 3 years.
How old is he? He'd be late 20s, surely.
Let me have a look.
I'm sorry, my internet got a little unstable. Who are we talking about?
Eric
Dier. Dier signed his new contract potentially.
Oh, Eric's 29.
Yeah, 29 years old. Yeah, 15th of Jan. Yeah.
It's strange because with him, he has some great games or he's never in the middle or he has some absolute shockers. So there's not maybe 2 years tops. Oh, yeah. He made it to the England team, but some of the goals we've conceded this year have been due to him.
Listen,
sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, carry on, Jack. Go.
No, I shouldn't. I apologize. I shouldn't have interrupted this. The notion of Eric Dier in a new contract is giving me a bit of a little bit of an issue here. I mean, if he's content, which I know he's not, if he's content to be the fifth or sixth center back in a 3-back system because he wants to play for a team that challenges for the title, then okay. Yeah. He's not homegrown. But he's been in the club a long time. He loves the club. The club likes him, I think. But I don't want him to sign a new contract and that give Daniel Levy the excuse of not having to sign another center back, or because we all believe we need at least 2. Maybe
he's just not very good. Is the bottom line?
That's the point. So that's what I'm saying. If he's the 5th or 6th option, right? He's playing your cup games. Then I'm fine with him. I like him. He's a lovely bloke.
Shouldn't be if he's gonna stay, then you want him to stay as a rotation option, not as a first choice option.
That's what I'm saying. If he's content with that, but he's got in his mind that he's going to be the English starting center back for England.
No, he's not good. He's nowhere near good enough.
100%.
Right, of course. Agree. Thank you. It's not. This is not rocket science. If he's willing to sit on the bench to stay at Tottenham, then fine. Just like Davies, if he wants to stay on the bench, great, because that means we have. We know what we're going to get, and they don't cost a lot of money, and that's fine. But we still need 2 to 3 more center backs to come in if they're serious about, depending on the formation, if they're serious about a challenge. So that's it.
Yeah.
Surely it'll be about 2 years at most.
It probably wouldn't too. It's still
yeah, I
I
couldn't
imagine it's 2
3
years.
more.
It's interesting. I mean, this is all conjecture, and you can imagine the social media uproar when that all come out over the last day or two. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? And on that, obviously, the contract situation, Charlie. Is there any players from Tottenham that you would think I would want at Chelsea and would walk straight into your starting 11?
Well, outside
Other
the
than
obvious. Well, obviously Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I would have said Kulusevski, but we've already kind of signed like wide players, so I don't
Got a lot of wide players.
We've got a lot, so we don't need any more. Even much of a good player as I think he is, we don't necessarily need any more. I look at midfield, which is where we need options, and first team players. Spurs midfield like ours, pretty sparse. Would probably, like, if I'm being honest, it is probably only Harry Kane that I would take. Maybe take Son as well, but at the expense of who, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I guess Kane's the obvious one. And
Romero?
no, probably not. Purely based on the fact because we've got an abundance of centre backs. We've got Thiago Silva, who's still doing phenomenally well at his age. I'd say probably the best centre back in the league still. Then you're looking at, we've got Badia Shield, we've got Fofana, we've got Chalobah, we've got Levi Colwell that might come back from loan next season. Yeah. Maybe we might buy someone else in the summer, who knows? But we're pretty well stocked at centre back. So yeah, I think obviously Harry Kane, Son is a great player, but you'd have to make room for him basically. Yeah, but Kane's the obvious one, like always. Probably Spurs' two best players, Kane and Son, are the ones that you'd take basically.
Not Bentancur. You don't like the idea of Bentancur?
I don't think he's not good. I just think we can do a lot better in the nicest way possible. Like, I think he's a good player, but I just feel that there's better options out there for us. Now, of course, if he were to arrive and we had that was our signing, I wouldn't be like disappointed in him, but I just think we can do better. Basically, but Spurs and Son, Kane and Son even, and that's probably it. I mean, there must be a few players that you take from Chelsea. I mean, Ziyech has been linked in the past. I don't know how strong those links are, but I don't know if you've seen Van der Vaart coming out and said that maybe a week or so back, a couple of weeks back, before the Milan game, that he thinks that Ziyech would solve a vast majority of Tottenham's problems. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, is Ziyech someone that you guys would potentially be interested in? Is he someone that you need? I mean, he's going to be available, so
yeah. A lot of us wanted him because our team suffers as greatly when Kulusevski's not in the lineup, and so for someone to play to rotate with Kulusevski, they're not the same player. But in terms of someone who can cut inside and shoot or cross, and Ziyech also has a decent free kick from my recollection. He would be someone who could have some creative spark in the final third. And when Kulusevski's not in there, and Kane's getting doubled, we have a lot of trouble. So that's why I think a lot of Spurs fans were fine with Ziyech coming in when that link was out there.
Yeah, good. Okay, so move on then. The obvious question left for the discussion is score predictions for tomorrow. So, Charlie, we'll start with you. How do you see the game tomorrow? What's the score?
I always say every week we can't keep losing, and we do. So maybe if I just keep saying we're going to win, eventually it's going to happen. I don't feel confident about getting any wins at the moment, despite our good record against Tottenham, as we've spoken about. But our luck's got to change at some point. So, and this would be obviously the perfect place to start. I'm going to say 1-0. But I equally wouldn't be surprised if it was a 1-1 draw. But I'll go with a 1-0 to try and speak it into existence.
Cam, how do you see it?
Initially, I was going to go 1-1. I'm going to go with Desmond. I think it's going to be the same as earlier in the season. I don't know if Chelsea's going to outplay us, but I do think there's going to be goals. So I'll go 2-2.
2-2. And Jack?
Ooh, 2-2. I still lean. I'm because I believe we should win on form. We won't win because it's Chelsea, so I'll predict a draw. But I won't 1-1.
I'm going to go 2-0 Chelsea. But we shall see. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I'm gloriously wrong, by the way.
We haven't even scored two. We haven't scored 2 goals this month.
I know,
Hey,
it's Tottenham.
we didn't bring this up, but I'll bring it up now. I assume you've seen it circulated quickly, right? That Real Madrid has outscored Chelsea in the country of England. So far in 2023.
Yeah, of course, yeah. we haven't scored any goals. We scored one goal this month. I think 4 goals this year, maybe
4 this year. 4
goals this year. Yeah.
But it's a team you always show up for, isn't it? Sure.
Yeah.
You know.
If we can't show up for this game, we've got bigger problems than any of us ever thought. If we can't show up for this game.
Yeah.
Potter's going to build a siege mentality into these players for Sunday for sure. It's a derby.
I mean, you shouldn't need motivating for a derby. Like, if you can't motivate yourself as a player for a derby, you've got big problems.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, pivotal game for both teams for different reasons. When we look ahead to the rest of the Premier League and the weekend's fixtures, we always like to do a quick prediction, get your predictions in. So, Everton, Villa. Everton, obviously, new manager bounce. Won the first game, lost their second. How do you see this going against Villa, Cam?
1-1.
1-0. Okay. Jack?
Yep, I'm with that. That's what I predicted
1-0.
in our prediction league. Yep.
Yeah. Charlie?
I pretty think a draw as well. Villa are a decent side, but I think Deitch has got Everton doing the basics well again, picking up a few results. And if Everton are going to stay up, they're going to have to pick up points at Goodison Park. So I don't necessarily think they're good enough to beat Villa, but I think the draw is the obvious result in this one.
Yeah, I agree. Draw all day long. Leeds, Southampton. Cam?
I'm going to go Leeds 1-0.
Interesting. Yeah, Jack?
That's exactly what I predicted again. So, yeah, I'll second Cam's on. We're on the same wavelength. I got 1-0 for Leeds.
This is a tricky one, isn't it? Because both got Leeds, obviously, first game for Javi Gracia in charge. So you might expect a new manager bounce from them, but then Southampton obviously had just appointed Sellers on a permanent deal. I don't know, this is massive for both teams. I'm going to go draw.
Yeah, I'm going to go Leeds win 1-0. Leicester, Arsenal. Come on in, Cam.
I think Arsenal wins 1-0, but I'm intrigued by Leicester. This will be something's changed there. They smacked us around a few weeks ago. They've got some players back from injury. It could be a draw, but I'm going to go Arsenal 1-0.
Okay.
I've got Arsenal 3-1. I think Maddison's iffy. I mean, if he plays, it's a different game, but I also know Tielemans has been training and Roger says he looks good. So, but they're so bad at the back, unless, FaZe is marking Kane. He's diabolical. So I'll get 3-1 Arsenal.
This is tough because Leicester actually, I watched Leicester at Old Trafford last weekend. I know they lost 3-0, but they actually played some good football, and they had a lot of chances to score in that game and should have been ahead in that first half quite comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's ifs and buts, but they have got a little bit about them. Scored 4 against you guys. Scored four at Villa Park as well. There's goals in the team, and if Maddison's on form and he plays, then they're a tricky proposition. But I just think, I'm going to go draw, but I realized I said draw for all of these games, but they're not all going to be draws. But I think a draw. Maybe a 2-2 or something, because Arsenal are letting quite a lot of goals in at the moment.
I'm going to go for a Leicester win because I can't ever say anything against Arsenal. And I'm praying it happens. West Ham, Forest. This is an interesting game, this one. How do you see it, Cam?
West Ham, from what I was reading, was abysmal last weekend against us. They looked. I'm going to go 2-2 draw.
Okay.
They're both near the bottom.
West Ham scores 2 goals on. I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket. I mean, I'll go West Ham 1-0.
I think a West Ham win as well. I don't think Forest have won away from home this season in the league. Away form's terrible, so I'll go West Ham just 1-0.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And then obviously we've got Bournemouth, Man City.
That's good. City, after losing last week, Pep's going to be irate. Then that's going to be an easy 3-0 to City.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as that Forest result with the City was mind-boggling. But yeah, I think they're going to take care of business this time. I'll just say 3-0. Yeah, that seems reasonable.
I'll go 3-1. I think City got way too much.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4-1 for me. And then Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Cam.
I can actually see Liverpool's been up and down this season. I don't know if they've got the bit between their teeth now because they've put in some absolutely shoddy results. I'm going to go Liverpool 2-1, but I can see Palace getting something out of this game very feasibly down at Selhurst Park. Liverpool are just not like they'll put in a great performance and then they get smacked up by Real Madrid. Then they'll get beaten by a cellar dweller in the Premier League. I'll go 2-1, but I can easily see Palace maybe getting a point from this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think most Tottenham fans should think Liverpool's the biggest competition for fourth, along with Newcastle. But of the teams that are not up there, it's clearly Liverpool. And if they put together a string of results, then I've got them 2-1 in this game. Like I think Cam, you and I have picked the same result in every fixture. But yeah, I'm going to take Liverpool 2-1. I don't trust Palace. I mean, they're a decent side, but I just don't trust them.
I mean, Liverpool aren't playing well at all at the moment. There's obvious deficiencies there, but again, like us, Palace don't have many goals in them. So I'd probably say draw in this one.
Yeah, I can't see Liverpool winning. I think it's a draw.
No,
Liverpool. I've got a sense their season's done. Do you think
I feel like their season's done? Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's the disappointing thing. They only have one competition to concentrate on, which is the problem for us and trying to stay fourth.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no, good, excellent. Okay, where are we? So I think we're about done. Great show tonight, lads. Thanks, Charlie, for coming on. Hope you enjoyed it and appreciate the debate.
No, pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. It's always good fun.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you for the next Chelsea game, hopefully. And Cam, thanks for coming on. I'm sure you're dying to get out there and hit the surf.
Oh, you bet, mate. I was looking at it's a bit cloudy outside, a bit windy. I looked at the South Surf report there. It's going to be at least about 5 foot wave. So, yeah, so, but I can't wait.
Are you a good surfer? Are you like, would you say you're epic? No.
No, definitely.
Stay on the board.
As I get older and after knee surgeries, I probably can't stay on the board anymore. But give me some body surfing. I probably won't take the surfboard down. I'll be more swimming today. But it's the last days of summer down here, so try and get as many beach days in as I can. So
yeah. And Jack, you're about as far from the beach as you can get, aren't you?
I can get. I live in a wonderful spot. I can wake up and I can wake up, have breakfast and coffee in the morning, and I can have lunch either in the mountains or the beach. I'm 2 hours either way. It's actually a really good setup. So yeah, I don't surf though. I like you. I'll body surf all day, and I have kayaks in the garage. I'll get on water anytime.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Very, very nice. Well, guys, I hope it's a fantastic weekend for Spurs, Cam and Jack, and I hope it's miserable for you, Charlie.
Well, I'll be there. I'll be there on Sunday.
Oh, I was going to ask, are you going?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, my son will be there. So every time he goes, I'm expecting the worst because that's just our luck. I've seen Spurs play 4 times and they've lost every single game.
Yeah, my seat, Charlie's above North Stand Upper, so I'm above the the away
The
section.
away end. Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm above
Yeah, I've only been to boxing at the Spurs there. I've not been to football there.
Oh, it is epic. I mean, I don't know. It's always funny, isn't it? Because obviously I experience all the hospitality that we get at the stadium in terms of our bars and the food outlets and everything. But I don't quite know what the away fans get down in the terraces.
It's never as good as what the home fans get.
But you still get a pint poured from the bottom of the glass, don't you? So
yeah.
What more do you want as an away fan?
Yeah, that's all you need.
Exactly. And no win. That's the other thing you need. No, but it's been a great show, lads. Thanks very much for your time. And the last thing to say is up the Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.